A new decade began at the end of the 80s. The television landscape was beginning to change somewhat. The big three were nervous about a new network called Fox that, with an animated show of all things called The Simpsons, would manage to beat them in the ratings. ABC decided to gamble on something completely different in comparison to anything else on the television landscape at that time, and a legend was born when the word spoken shakily into a phone we hear,
"She's dead, wrapped in plastic."
This was the first glimpse that viewers would have into the misty and surreal town of Twin Peaks, a dream world created by David Lynch and Mark Frost, which would become an obsession to viewers and would continue to be over the years to come. Twin Peaks didn't follow any conventional rule of how a TV series acted, and David Lynch, a man known for the strange in his film work, would not tame it down for a small screen at all. So grab your damn fine coffee and get that slice of pie to go. We're about to arrive in the picturesque town of Twin Peaks, where nothing is what it seems. In this episode of Gone But Not Forgotten. In the 80s, Mark Frost and David Lynch had partnered together on a few projects that never came to fruition. Mark Frost was a writer who had been working in television since the 70s. He'd written episodes for The $6 Million Man, The Equalizer, and most predominantly, Hill Street Blues. Frost would go on to write feature films as well, including The Believers and Storyville, which he'd also direct. Lynch was a well-known filmmaker with a penchant for strange and surreal films that both horrified and awed viewers with a mix of beautiful visuals along with unnerving and sometimes grotesque ones. Lynch had already become a cult phenomenon with Eraserhead and the multi-Oscar nominated The Elephant Man. He'd followed Elephant Man up with the box office sci-fi failure Dune, which you still had to give him props for attempting. After that came Blue Velvet, which you could actually call Twin Peaks' older sibling. Blue Velvet had a cast of bizarre characters, dreamlike sequences, and a noir vibe within a small town. It also starred actor Kyle MacLachlan as a young man trying to figure out a mystery. And it had Dennis Hopper in a role that would go down in history as one of the most batshit of all time. Lynch would be nominated for another Oscar as Best Director for the film. It was Blue Velvet that would inspire agent Tony Krantz to tell his client David Lynch he should do a TV series based on what he saw life in America. Lynch wasn't interested in doing TV. He was a movie guy after all. But he was eventually convinced after getting intrigued by the idea along with Frost. Originally, the series was going to be set in North Dakota, with the series named North Dakota. This was then changed to the Pacific Northwest, with its dense forests and misty, rain-shrouded landscape. Lynch and Frost mapped out the town and then started in on the characters and story, which all began with a body next to a lake. The title changed again to Northwest Passage, eventually becoming Twin Peaks. After bringing the idea to ABC, the two were asked to write the pilot. The pilot was shot and then shown to the heads of ABC, including Bob Iger. Iger had to convince the rest of the executives to go along with the series, which he got them to do. In April of 1990, audiences would get their first experience with the town of Twin Peaks. There are some mysteries that are legendary in the annals of television. Who shot JR? Who was the one-armed man in The Fugitive? And thanks to David Lynch, who killed Laura Palmer? The pilot episode of the series begins, as said, with the discovery of Laura Palmer dead and wrapped in plastic by Peter Martell. This discovery sets off a chain of events and also introduces us to the very colorful characters who populate Twin Peaks. Sheriff Harry S. Truman arrives on the scene with the local doctor and determines it is in fact Laura, one of the most popular girls at the local high school. She's the homecoming queen and a teenage dream. The revelation that she's died sends shockwaves through Twin Peaks, And one of the greatest breakdowns in TV history happens when her mother is given the news. It's heart-wrenching, as is her father's reaction. Lynch and Frost have some great actors in this show. Laura isn't the only girl discovered, though. Another local girl, Ronette, stumbles, bloody and broken, from somewhere and is taken to a hospital. She's still alive, but barely. This is the motivation needed to bring in the FBI, and that's when Special Agent Dale Cooper arrives along with his trusty tape recorder, leaving messages to Diane, his assistant. Things progress in the investigation, and Cooper realizes, after finding a small letter R on a piece of paper under one of Laura's nails, that this is the work of a killer he's been searching for involved with another homicide. Cooper meets more of the residents that we've briefly seen. This includes the bombshell Audrey Horne, whose father owns the hotel that Cooper is staying in and who has plans to take over the local lumber mill. Bobby, Laura's tough and slightly crazy boyfriend, James Hurley, her secret boyfriend, as well as Donna, Laura's best girlfriend, are all investigated and interrogated. Ed Hurley, James's uncle, is also introduced with his gas farm, along with his eye patch and drape-loving wife, Nadine. The beautiful Josie Packard is the default owner of the lumber mill after her husband dies, and Josie's sister-in-law that hates her, Catherine Martell, whose husband was the man who found Laura. Shelley, a young woman who is a waitress at the local diner, is also trapped in an abusive marriage to Leo, a trucker who has quite the shady business dealings. Cooper has a plethora of suspects to pick from in these characters. He's helped in his endeavor, besides the aforementioned sheriff, by Deputy Andy, who cries at nearly every crime scene, and Deputy Hawk. Lucy, the secretary for the sheriff's office, plies everyone with a buffet of donuts and no doubt should be arrested for giving everyone diabetes. But that's neither here nor there. As the first season progresses, we find out a number of intrigues happening in the small town, which has at its center a whirlpool of supernatural power. Cooper has a dream, the first of many, where he meets a one-armed man of his own who tells him that the killer of Laura is a demonic entity named Bob. Within the dream, he sees an older version of himself and Laura Palmer in a room with a dwarf who speaks what seems to be gibberish or possibly backward. Cooper realizes these clues can lead him to Laura's killer if he can figure out what they mean. This dream sequence is pure, unfiltered David Lynch, and if you could sell it as a drug, then world peace might be achieved. At the end of the first season, Cooper thinks he's found the killer, a man named Renault, who is shot while trying to get away. He is in turn murdered by Leland, Laura's father. Leo is shot after setting fire to the mill to keep him quiet. He's in a coma. He was also about to kill Bobby, who had been working with him on his drug deals and who was also having an affair with Leo's wife. On top of all these crimes and murders, the season finale ends with Agent Cooper shot by an unknown assailant. And that's just the first season. Twin Peaks became a hit and an obsession for viewers, who will be talking about it the next day at the local water cooler. The pilot was the biggest ratings winner for the season, and the next episode would give ABC its biggest ratings hit in years. The first season was nominated for 14 Emmy Awards. The second season, though, wouldn't have as a grand time with the network when it came to ratings. Lynch and Frost never really intended to answer the mystery of Laura Palmer's murder, but wound up doing so halfway through the second season, with the revelation that Laura's father Leland had been possessed by Bob and was his own daughter's murderer. The second season delved deeper into the supernatural side of things, with the revelation of the Black Lodge and the White Lodge, two other dimensional places where the entities who have been swirling around Twin Peaks come from, and is where Dale Cooper is getting his visions from. We discover who Cooper's shooter is, and he gets a new love interest in the form of Annie. Of course, it's probably not a healthy choice to fall in love with the FBI agent who's investigating this town full of weird. As it turns out, Cooper's got a nemesis in the form of Wyndham Earl, his mentor and now a murderous villain. In the season, and what would turn out this iteration's series finale, Cooper discovers his doppelganger after having to go to the Black Lodge to save Annie. It is there he encounters Bob as well. Cooper and Annie seemingly escape, with Annie having to be hospitalized due to her injuries. Cooper is taken back to his hotel room. It's there we discover that this isn't Cooper at all, but Bob in the guise of Cooper's doppelganger, who after smashing his head into the mirror starts asking, "How's Annie?" and maniacally laughs. By the way, that creepy question was actually improvised by McLaughlin. This cliffhanger ending was a hopeful attempt to get a renewal, but sadly Twin Peaks had hit a rough patch for a few reasons. Firstly, the series had been placed on Thursday night, which was a rough spot for anyone going up against NBC. The ratings steadily declined throughout the first season, until the first season finale was moved to Wednesday and scored a hit number of viewers. With the second season, though, things continued to be rough going. Bending under the pressure of not only viewers and the network, but also Mark Frost, Lynch went along with revealing Laura's killer halfway through season 2. Still, even with the inclusion of new characters and the expanding paranormal elements, Twin Peaks kept losing viewers. Then the Gulf War happened, and that was all she wrote. Twin Peaks was canceled by ABC after being put on an indefinite hiatus in 1991. Fans tried to save the series, but it wasn't meant to be. Yet, all was not lost. In 1992, David Lynch wrote and directed a prequel feature film to the series called Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. The film was just as quirky as the series and would add to the mix David Bowie as Special Agent Philip Jeffries and Chris Isaac as Special Agent Chester Desmond. We see the investigation into Teresa Banks' murder, the first victim and the one that Dale Cooper mentions during his examination of Laura in the series. Desmond disappears while investigating the crime. Agent Jeffries disappeared as well, but then reappeared at FBI headquarters rambling seemingly incoherent, and then vanishes. The film also follows the last 7 days in the life of Laura Palmer, and we see her sad, hidden existence where she works as a prostitute secretly and grows addicted to cocaine. We also see her be raped by Bob in the guise of her father. Fire Walk with Me is a dark, dark movie. Things proceed and end with Laura's body being discovered and Cooper still trapped with Laura in the Black Lodge. While fans were happy that they got some more time with the characters, the film was a box office failure, not even breaking even on a $10 million budget. Lynch also cut out nearly 90 minutes of film to get the running time to 2 hours and 14 minutes. Eventually, these cut and deleted scenes would be edited together into their own feature-length film, Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces, and would be released in 2014 as part of the Twin Peaks: The Entire Mystery set on Blu-ray. But it would turn out that Fire Walk with Me would not be the last time we'd see Twin Peaks or Dale Cooper. As implied in the series, when Cooper sees himself in the Black Lodge, he's 25 years older. And so, 25 years after we last saw the real Dale Cooper, Twin Peaks: The Return aired on Showtime in 2017. The entire series was directed by David Lynch and written by him and Mark Frost. Nearly all the cast returned, with some heavy-hitting talent like Richard Chamberlain, Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, Matthew Lillard, David Dastmalchian, Monica Bellucci, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, just to name a few. The new season is an actual continuation of the show. It starts with Cooper still trapped in the Black Lodge, while his doppelganger, a creepy black-eyed and long-haired psychopath still possessed by Bob, is wreaking havoc. The real Cooper manages to escape, though he's lost a lot of his memory. The series follows Cooper as he tries to find himself and save Laura, while various other intrigues occur throughout the town. The Return also gives us that good old David Lynch strangeness unleashed, as well as an amazing episode that shows just how the Black and White Lodges were created. The ending of the final 18th episode is unnerving and exactly something you'd expect from Lynch. The Return is an epic season of TV, or miniseries if you want to call it that. It's amazing that a show that ended a quarter of a century prior could come back like this and pack the punch it did. The show was for several Emmys and nominated for multiple awards, which they won a lot. The Return wound up being considered one of the best TV series of 2017 and got stellar reviews. Lynch has said that he wouldn't be opposed to returning if the gang were interested, and the time was right. The gang consists of some amazing talent, many of whom have worked with Lynch multiple times. Of course, one of the standouts is Kyle MacLachlan as Dale Cooper and his doppelganger. MacLachlan was never afraid to go weird in his work. The one thing he brought with Cooper from the beginning was an almost childlike wonder to everything. That possibly allowed him to more easily accept the weird goings-on in and around Twin Peaks, but it also endeared him to fans. Another standout was Ray Wise as Leland Palmer, both in his regular and possessed visages. Sherilyn Fenn as Audrey Horne was shockingly beautiful and brought to the role an old-school bombshell quality. I will never forget seeing her prove she could tie a cherry stem with her tongue. Piper Laurie as Catherine Martell brought the old Hollywood to the series, much like your typical nighttime soaps were doing with series like Falcon Crest and Dynasty. She was amazing in the series. Everett McGill as Ed Hurley was also fantastic. I'm used to seeing him playing a heavy in things. People Under the Stairs comes to mind, but here, Ed is a decent man who wants to do right by everyone. He is filled with guilt over some of his decisions, and is tied to a wife who is different. David Duchovny's turn as Agent Dennis Bryson was a major moment in television as a trans woman. This was something not really seen on TV, much less network TV in prime time. Probably one of the most surprising things to discover is that Frank Silva, who played the deranged, demonic Bob, happened onto the role by accident. During the final shot of the pilot, where Laura's mother wakes up screaming, Silva's reflection can be seen in the glass of a frame behind her. Silva was a set decorator who just happened to be caught there. David Lynch liked this happy accident and thought Silva had the perfect face for a demonic entity. Bob became the big bad of the entire series. Sadly, Silva died in 1995 at the young age of 44. There are so many great actors here, I can't list them all, but I have to give a special shout out to Cheryl Lee, who wasn't supposed to be more than a body in the series. She had such an effect, though, on Lynch, simply as a corpse, that he kept bringing her back and gave more story to Laura Palmer herself. Eventually, Lee would play 3 different roles over the course of the series. One of the standout aspects of Twin Peaks, besides the beautiful way Lynch shot it, was the music and soundtrack. The music of Twin Peaks is its own character. It's haunting and ethereal. It was composed by Angelo Badalamenti. 4 soundtrack collections have been released of the music. Lynch himself wrote lyrics for songs in the series. 4 of these were sung by the late Julie Cruz, whose otherworldly voice was perfect for the show. Cruz would appear in the series and in Fire Walk With Me. Tie-ins to the series included The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, which was written by Lynch's daughter, Jennifer. The autobiography of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, My Life, My Tapes, was written by Scott Frost. There was even, funnily enough, a book on tape, sort of, that was performed by Kyle MacLachlan called Diane, The Twin Peaks Tapes of Agent Cooper. The Secret History of Twin Peaks was released in 2016 before The Return was to start, and Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier came out on Halloween of 2017. It gave some insight into what had happened over the 25 years that Cooper was trapped in the Black Lodge, and the fates of characters we didn't know, including poor Annie. There's even a Twin Peaks VR game that came out in 2019, where you go into the Red Room and visit locations around the town. This includes being menaced by Bob's laughing, floating head. There are Twin Peaks tours of the original pilot's filming locations in the Washington area. There are different ones you can choose from, including those specific to Fire Walk with Me or specific seasons. You can even eat at the diner on a couple of the tours. Pop culture embraced Twin Peaks readily, with parodies and the like. But probably my favorite was an entire episode of the series Psych, called Dual Spires, which had a ton of actors from the show as new characters in an obvious nod to the series. Twin Peaks is a surreal experience. I would say that there's been nothing quite like it on TV, but that's not true. I think the closest I could come would be Dark Shadows. You had a misty, mysterious town that seemed to be a source of a lot of supernatural occurrences, all mixed together with a healthy dose of soap opera and drama. There's a sort of curse over the towns in both shows that comes down upon the townsfolk, no matter if they are innocent or guilty. Within Twin Peaks, you see that David Lynch has an idea of the true heart of small-town America, which the town tries very hard to hide the skeletons in its closets, and typically everyone has something to hide. The higher up on the food chain usually has the worst stuff that they are hiding. Nearly everyone in Twin Peaks is having some sort of hidden life or affair. There are some truly pure souls like Andy or Cooper, but we see that almost everyone is hiding something. The duality within the show is represented by the two lodges, of course, one good and the other evil. Then there's the fact that there are doppelgangers. Twin Peaks is also filled with a lot of dream interpretations and symbolism. Cooper relies on his dreams to lead him to answers. There's some interesting debate on this and how meta the show could be within that scenario. Cooper states at one point that everyone in Twin Peaks is a character in a dream. Perhaps Agent Cooper, the character, thanks to his time in the Black Lodge, has realized that none of this is real. Maybe the nuclear explosion that created the lodges destroyed the world and they are simply, like the rest of us, characters in some godlike being's dream. Maybe this is all a delusion and Cooper is in an insane asylum somewhere. There are a lot of theories, but two really interesting ones are at the end of The Return, when we hear Laura's name being called after Cooper asks, "What year is it?" Carrie then screams as everything goes black. She's realized that as Laura, she's trapped in a loop she can never get out of. Or, the trippy one, that Cooper and Carrie have entered our reality, and Carrie realizes that they've left their dimension to this one, where they don't exist when the TV is turned off. Hence the fade to black scream. I know, trippy, right? But that's the power of David Lynch and Mark Frost's work. They don't spoon feed you the answers. They give you a glorious dinner and make you have to figure out just what you've been eating yourself. It's a weird analogy, I know, but accurate. Streaming Twin Peaks is a bit of a mess. As of the production of this episode, you can watch the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks on Paramount+. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is on Max. However, you have more options to see Season 3, which is available on not just Paramount+, but also Roku, Vudu, Showtime, and many more. I would highly suggest you experience this masterpiece. Twin Peaks is that rare and unique dark little jewel in the crown of network television. I don't know if we would have ever gotten it at any other time than when it appeared. And while we can ask if it should come back, it's obvious that it already did. But like I said, David Lynch is not opposed to another trip back if the stars align just right. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay. We got to return to the town of pie and coffee as dark as the secrets hidden within the hearts of the people who live there.